Could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 2021 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2021 NFL Draft. We're talking tight ends tonight, and I would be lying if I told you I was uber excited about this class of tight ends, but it's the same way I felt about the tight end class last draft. Now, the year before that, in 2019, I thought there was an exceptional draft class of tight ends, and we're still kind of waiting to see how they're all going to turn out. But T.J. Hockenson was a first-round pick. As a matter of fact, I think he went top 10 into Detroit. Noah Fant was a first-rounder that year as well. Both of them are doing really well in the NFL right now. There were some other guys in that draft that I really liked. Dawson Knox, who's in Buffalo right now. I was a massive fan of Jay Sternberger, who still really hasn't evolved in Green Bay. Don't know if he will or not, but it was a deep tight end class 2 years ago. Not so much last year. Remember, we didn't have a first-round tight end last draft. The first tight end off the board was Cole Kmet of Notre Dame, and I think that was like 48, 49, somewhere in that general vicinity to the Chicago Bears. So we're not looking like we did last year, where it was a really, really porous tight end draft class, to the point where not only was there not a first round tight end, but we've got pretty much midway through the second round before a name even emerged. So we're not in that territory. We do have a first round tight end this year. As a matter of fact, he's going to be a top 10 tight end. Hell, he might even go top 5, depending on what Atlanta decides to do at number 4. But that being said, after him, there is no definitive number 2 tight end in this draft. I bet you if you asked 10 people, you might get 5 or 6 different orders of how people have 2 through 5 in this draft. For me, I'm going to give you my top 7. It could be all over the place because it's all in what you desire and really what you hold to be one of your more weighted attributes. You know, what are you looking for? What are the things that you hold in high regard when looking at these tight ends? Do you want a guy that can block? Do you want a guy that's a pass catching threat? Do you want a guy that offers you a little bit of blocking but gives you some flexibility in terms of precisional flex or formational flex that can move around? What exactly are you looking for? Because of the college football landscape at the tight end position, a lot of these guys don't come in as A1 level blockers, and teams understand that now. But what can you offer me while I teach you how to block? And for some of these guys, to hell with them as a blocker. If they are exceptional as pass catchers, then you just go with that trait and you try to minimize putting them in positions to fail as a blocker. But you don't want to have tells. In this league, you try to get away from things that the defense can prey upon. And one of those things is, hey, when this guy's in the game, they're throwing a football because he's not a run blocker. You don't want teams to have those types of tells. So guys have to have at least some ability to block. But I'll tell you what, this isn't last year's draft class. It's better than that. It's not 2019's draft class, though. Okay. So to me, a little bit more throughout, but I can tell you this. After my 7th guy, I don't really have another guy that I'm really excited about in this draft, to be honest with you. And it would be at that point that I would then be willing to take a flyer on the kid that I told you guys about that hasn't played college football, that worked out at the Florida Pro Day, that went to Tulane to play college basketball, coming from overseas in Chile. I would take him after my 7th guy, because when I look at the rest of the crop of the tight ends in this draft, I'm looking at them and I'm saying they're a dime a dozen. I can find those guys anywhere. I can find one of those as an undrafted guy. They aren't difference makers. Their ceiling in this league is very low. Their floor might be, and their ceiling might be one and the same. So you might be drafting a guy in the 5th, 6th round that, hey, he's not going to flame out and bust and not be a player that lasts in this league 2-3 years. He may last 6, 7, 8, 9 years and have a solid NFL career, but he's never going to be more than a 2 or 3 tight end in this league, more than a specialist, a guy that can really block, a guy that can be a serviceable special teams contributor, but he's never going to be more than that for you. That's where I draw the line. When we get to that point in the draft, that's when I'm willing to take a flyer on a guy that could potentially change the game. So I've got 7, and then after my 7th guy, that's when I would start entertaining taking the Chilean basketball player turned NFL tight end who's throwing his name in the hat in the NFL draft. I said 5th round or later for him. If it tickles your fancy and you get a little itchy in the 4th, I wouldn't mind it. But for me, 5th round or later on him, and the rest is history. I don't get excited about a lot of the rest of the tight ends at the back end of this draft crop of tight ends. So with that said, I want to go ahead and before we get started, make sure that I ask you guys to do me a huge solid, and that is turn on your notification bell. All right. Make sure that you like this video first and foremost, and then hit the subscribe button. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, that should be the number one thing above all else. And then after you hit that, turn on the notification bell. And then, and only then, do you hit the like button. Maybe you're not coming back. Maybe this is a one-time thing. Okay, well, at least hit the like button on the way out. I greatly appreciate that. So with that said, let's get straight to the proceedings this evening. I was a little bit tardy, so I don't want to hold you guys here any longer than I need to. I'm going to make this very quick. So let's run through these 7 tight ends that I have for you tonight and take a look at my rankings for each and every single one of them. The number 1 tight end is anticlimactic. I probably should have gone in reverse, honestly speaking, because you guys know who number 1 is, but you don't know who 7 through 2 are, or 2 through 7 are. So let's get to it right now, and we start with my number 7 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft, and that is Trey Mckitty, Georgia tight end. He's a senior. He actually transferred from Florida State as a graduate transfer, and he was looking to kind of do the same thing that Jabril Cox did when he transferred from, and it's not apples to apples, but the Florida State program has fallen on such hard times that you could view it as a school that is not in a Power 5 conference. It's that bad right now. It's almost hard to fathom what has happened to that program, but that's nor here nor there. He transferred from Florida State and all the nonsense there to have an opportunity to showcase his skills on a much grander scale and stage so that people could see him, recognize his name, and maybe elevate his draft stock. It worked out for Jabril Cox, coming from North Dakota State to LSU in the SEC, where the best college football is played, and it's elevated his draft stock to potentially a 2nd-round pick. Didn't necessarily work out the same way for Trey Mckitty. Played some of his best football at Florida State, thought he was going to have an opportunity to kill it at Georgia. Their quarterback situation was a mess this past year, and it really, I think, stunted his growth as a receiver, and his numbers suffered because of it. So there's enough Trey Mckitty film for you to understand that he's an athlete and he can do some things, but this year wasn't as flattering for him, and it wasn't exactly what he thought it was going to be. He's still going to get drafted because he's still an athlete. Let's talk about Trey Mckitty and flip his card over and take a look at what he brings to the table. So first thing we talk about is his size. You talk about a 6'4", 250-pound tight end, essentially, which is really the going rate for an NFL tight end if you want to be taken seriously. Look, you can end up around 240, 245. That's fine. You can get by with that as long as you are able to still be physical in the run game and do the things that tight ends have to do in this league, block safeties and corners and not have a problem doing so, linebackers and things of that nature. But 250 usually, 6'4", 250, that's the going rate. Whatever, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and above. 250 is usually the baseline. That's where you want your guys to be. Somewhere 245 is really where you want them to be, and then up. And so he's right there where he needs to be. Solid hands, man. This is a guy catches the football really well. doesn't have any issues in that department. I love his athleticism and quickness. I think those are the things that you look at and say this is the thing that separates him from the rest of the pack left in this draft is his athleticism and quickness. You're not going to get that out of Miller Forrestall, out of Alabama. You're not going to get him. You're not going to get some of that stuff out of some of these other guys like Kerry Angeline from North Carolina State. You're just not going to get that from some of those other guys. And it's that quickness and athleticism that allows him to do a couple of things, like be a difference maker after the catch. His run after the catch for a tight end is probably, I'd say, second or third best in this draft at the tight end position. He's really good with the football in his hands. And after the catch, he can actually make people miss in space, which a lot of these tight ends, you usually don't look for your tight end to make anybody miss. Either you run past a guy, you run over a guy, or you get tackled. Maybe you leap over a guy. Some of these guys are a little overzealous there in that department, want to try to jump all the damn time. But you rarely see a tight end juking people. And he has that ability to make people miss in space when he is in shape. I like my Trey Mckitty in shape. Sometimes I think he could put on a little bit of weight. But in any event, though that and the fact that I think he's an exceptional route runner and separator, and that quickness is where you see it come in to play. He's got a hell of a stutter at the stem of his route that breaks dudes off, whether he's stuttering to get vertical or he's stuttering to go inside, acting as if he's going outside, or vice versa, acting as if he's going outside to go inside. He's got a great stutter at the stem of his route. So he's able to break dudes off really well to separate. And I think that's something else that is intriguing watching Trey Mckitty on tape. He's a physical guy as a blocker. I like that about him. At Florida State and Georgia, at both places he was asked to block. He was in the backfield with the running back that now plays for the Rams, that played for Florida State for a few years. And then he went to Georgia, and that's what they do at Georgia. They run the football. So he was a guy that was more of a wing tight end, not on the line of scrimmage, more so did a lot of his damage as a wing, offset of the line of scrimmage, at the tackle's hip, and going in motion and crack blocking and doing a lot of countering and being the lead blocker on counters. So a lot of wham blocks for him and things of that nature. But he's physical. That's the one thing you take away from him, is that he's not afraid to put his hat on a hat, his face mask in someone's chest, and be physical at the point of attack. He can catch the football in traffic. He's a guy that can get vertical. That's one of the things I like about this draft, is you don't have a bunch of stiffies, a bunch of guys that have to do their damage underneath. If you don't lay hands on these guys at the line of scrimmage, if you give them a free release, they can get vertical and hurt you over the middle of the football field. And in certain instances, they could get vertical, not necessarily over the middle of the field, up the seam, but they can go outside the numbers and hurt you as well. So, or outside the hash marks and hurt you. So you have guys here that can get up the football field that aren't slouches from an athleticism and speed standpoint. So he's another one of those guys. Don't exactly know his 40, didn't run one at the Georgia Pro Day, elected not to, but on tape you can see a guy that can run. He can pick him up and put him down. So I think he's a guy that can also hurt you vertically as well. Formational flex, like I talked about, this is a guy that moved all around the formation. You can split him out into the slot. You can split him out all the way out wide if you so choose. He didn't do that a ton at Florida State or Georgia, but he's a guy that moves around, can be in line. Very infrequently was he asked to do that, but he did have some experience doing that. But more so, you'll find this guy in the backfield as a wing, lining up, going in motion, things of that nature. So there's a lot of things you can do with him from a formational flex standpoint. And so there are a lot of things that I like about Trey Mckitty. You go to his weaknesses. Pedestrian collegiate production is probably the biggest thing that you have to take into consideration when talking about Trey Mckitty. It's the same thing that we're going to talk about with Tommy Tremble a little bit later on in the program. And that's, look, this guy doesn't have a ton of production for you to feast on. You've got to be able to project Trey Mckitty, because there isn't a bunch of numbers, It's a lot worse for Tommy Tremble than it is Trey Mckitty. At least you've got a couple of seasons at Florida State where he actually had some catches, over 20 catches, where you can actually see this guy running routes, making catches, traffic, things of that nature. It's a lot less with Tommy Tremble. That said, you have to be able to project what this guy is at the next level because there isn't a ton of production. There isn't a lot of opportunities for you to be able to see him and say, all right, this is what I envision him being at the next level. So the production does hurt him. And, you know, it's a shame because with some of these guys, especially the tight end position, first and foremost, the tight end position isn't a glamorous one at the collegiate level. They're the ones that usually get cut out of the offense. When we look at collegiate offenses, running backs, wide receivers, and offensive linemen are the stars of the show. Really, the tight ends are the ones that kind of get shitted on. They're the ones that get the table scraps left from whatever the running backs and receivers don't eat. And so a lot of these guys are uber talented, but they just don't get a lot of opportunities because if you've got a talented trio of wide receivers and you've got a back that you really like, there's only so many footballs to go around, and whatever they don't eat up and gobble up, the tight end gets left. So you factor that into the equation, and then you make it 10 times worse for a tight end when you tell me that his quarterback situation is less than ideal. It was less than ideal at Florida State with Francois and the tall kid. And then you come to Georgia and you're thinking, okay, there's going to be a level of stability there. And then you get the opt-out from the Wake Forest quarterback, Jamie Newman, and all of a sudden now you got Stetson Bennett and all this trash at quarterback, and it's just not a situation that you want to find yourself in your final year of your collegiate career. But that's what happened to Trey Mckitty. So some of it is on him, but most of it I could just blame on the fact that he didn't have any real quarterbacks that he played with his entire collegiate career. Not featured as an inline wide tight end. Look, you're going to be able to say that. You probably could say that about 75% of the guys that get drafted into the league. It is what it is. I'm nitpicking at this point. And then finally, knee scope right before the 2020 season. How much did that impact this year? We don't know. You know, there's no such thing as a minor surgery, even though a knee scope is termed as minor surgery. If it's surgery, if they got to open you up, it's serious. You know, the saying is it's only minor surgery if it's not happening to you. And so he had a knee scope before the season, like right before the season started, and he played. How did that impact him during the year? Did his knee ever really fully heal and regain maximum strength? I don't know. We don't know. Hard for us to say. He didn't run a 40 at his pro day, so he may be still, you know, recovering and might have had another procedure done. Who's to say? At the end of the day, I see Trey Mckitty as a day 3 prospect. I think he's a guy that won't hear his name called in the first 3 rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't hear his name called in the first 4 rounds, but I'd be shocked if he didn't hear his name called by the 5th round. Okay, Jordan Atkins, the UCF tight end drafted by the Houston Texans in the 3rd round, is my comp for him. Another guy that I was really enamored with coming out of the draft a few years ago when he was drafted by the Texans. A guy that could run, was a really solid athlete, similar size, right around 6'3", 6'4", and 245, 250 pounds, and could stretch the football field vertically. And I see a lot of the same attributes in Trey Mckitty at this juncture of his career. He is my 7th tight end in the 2021 NFL draft. We go to my number 6 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft, and it's Boston College tight end Hunter Long. And so Hunter Long is a guy that stands at 6'5", 254, and he's a much better athlete than I think you get to see on film. Don't think you actually get to see the full spectrum of what he can do. I don't love his short area quickness or his ability to separate or any of that stuff, but get him in a straight line and let him run and open up. I think this is a guy that can scoot, and that was evident by the 40 time that he was able to post. So I think there may be more here to Hunter Long than I'm giving him credit for as my number 6 tight end, but I wasn't massively in love with what I saw from him. I feel like he's a guy that could end up turning into a really good NFL tight end, but he could also just be a guy. He could just be a jag, essentially, just an average guy. And so it's hard for me to stomach a guy like Hunter Long when I look at him and I say, hey, he could be really good. He could be one of these guys that in 4 years we're talking about him as a Kyle Rudolph or a Zach Ertz type, or in 3-4 years we could be talking about him being a journeyman tight end that's barely hanging on by a thread. So we'll see what happens. Let's flip his card over, though, and talk about it. And so the first thing we talk about with Hunter Long is he's a height, weight, speed specimen. And he classifies for that at 6'5", 254, and running a 4.63 40. And I talked about the speed element of the tight end position. And once you get sub 4.7, that's speed in the NFL at the tight end position. Don't allow the 4.44s and the 4.41s that some of these guys are able to run to cloud your judgment on what's fast and what's not fast at the tight end position. 4.63 is plenty fast at the tight end position. Some of the best tight ends, as I've mentioned over and over again, aren't sub 4.7 guys. When you start talking Zach Ertz and you start talking about some of the guys that have been big separators at the NFL level, the Jason Wittens of the world over the last decade, these aren't 4.7 guys. These are 4.75, 4.77 dudes that just make a living separating with shrewd route running ability and the little, nicks and knacks and the subtleties to the game of how to push off, lean on the defender to create that extra bit of separation. Maybe Hunter Long will develop that, but he doesn't have to right now because he's got some speed to hurt you vertical, and hopefully that'll open up some things underneath for him. He's got good hands, respectable hands. There were some drops on tape, but there were few and far between. They're not enough for me to ding him and note that as something that is a problem and a weakness for me. He's got respectable hands, though. They could be better. They could be better. He competes as a blocker. Again, I think he's a guy that is physical enough at the point of attack. There's enough here to work with. He's not a guy that's shy about contact or any of that. So I think he's a guy, as long as you're willing to compete as a blocker, I've got a foundation as a coach from which to work with and from. I feel good about you. I feel like I can do something with you, and he's one of those guys. Can find a soft spot in zone coverage. Knows how to sit down, make himself available, show his numbers to the quarterback. He's a big guy already at 6'5", 255. So he's an inviting target as is, but it's good to know that if they're playing zone coverage, my guy knows where to sit down, make himself available. On 2nd and 7, he knows how to sit down right at the sticks, get us the first down. On 3rd and 5, he knows how to get us 6 and move the sticks. So knows how to sit down and find the soft spots in zone coverage. Can catch the football in traffic. I will tell you, however, the drops that I saw from him were in traffic, but I did see him catch the football more times in traffic than not catch it in traffic. So again, I'm not going to ding him, but that is something. The reason I didn't just put catches it in traffic is because, and I had to put can, is because there were some misses from him in traffic that I'd like to see him clean up. He can get vertical, and the 4.63 reiterates that, hammers that home, that he can get vertical. But any slight bump of him at the line of scrimmage or any hand fighting with him, or if someone lays hands on him, you can impede his progress and you can stay right in his hip pocket. He doesn't have the acceleration, doesn't have the quickness to get defenders off of him. I think the best game, if you really want to see how someone can really impact Hunter Long, go watch the North Carolina game. Their safety was in his jersey the entire game, and it was simply because he was physical with Hunter Long from the jump. And Hunter Long isn't a separator, so that guy was never, ever fully threatened by his speed down the field, and he's not afraid of his ability to break him off 1-2 steps, Sierra style, and create separation. So he was in his chest. He was in his jersey the entire game, and there were drops in that game because of it. That was the game that made me focus on, hey, man, how many targets did this guy have anyway? Because in that North Carolina game, it felt like he had like 20 targets in that game, and he only had like 7 or 8 grabs. Felt like a bunch of targets, not a lot of catches. And I said, how many targets did he have in 2020? Because he's getting an awful lot of opportunities. that a lot of tight ends in college football wish they were getting that they simply aren't. So he could get vertical, but you can stay with him vertically. Again, if he gets a free release, no one touches him, yeah, he can get vertical on you in a hurry. Formational flex, another one of these guys. Look, this goes without saying for just about every tight end in this draft. And really any tight end in college football coming to the pro ranks, you're going to have formational flex. These guys move around. They're not stationary. The days of just lining up in line as a wide, traditional wide tight end are over in college football. If you're one of those guys, more likely than not, you're getting drafted in the 5th, 6th, 7th round more likely than not. If you're looking to be drafted in the first 2 days of the draft, you got to have formational flex. And Hunter Long is a guy that moves all around the formation. Another one of these one of these wing tight ends, one of these guys that's not usually on the line of scrimmage, can flex him out, can do a lot of different things with him. And so that goes without saying. Production and 2020 volume. So his production throughout his career was pretty consistent, especially the last 2 seasons where this guy had 85 catches for 1,194 yards and average rate around 15 yards per pop and 7 touchdowns over the last 2 years. And so the production has been really solid for him throughout his entire career. And then the 2020 volume was something that I noticed. I talked about that with the North Carolina game, and it really made me to do a little bit of digging and deep diving. And what I found was this guy had 89 targets, which was by far and away the most in college football for any tight end in the entire nation. And, when you go back to 2019 with all the tight ends, there were guys that had 100, catches in that season. But that's unheard of really at the tight end position. But when you look at Hunter Long and what he brings to the table, this is a guy that had 89 targets, which was 22 more than any other tight end across the nation. So, he was targeted a ton. It was a high volume amount of targets going in his direction. And while I wasn't really thrilled with the uptick in yardage from all the targets that he got, his numbers went up across the board. Almost 30 more receptions than the year previous. The yardage didn't really see the jump that you would like with that many targets, but that went up as well. That increased. And the touchdowns increased. So his numbers increased all the way across the board. So he really took advantage of all of those targets that came his way. Weaknesses. Lacks true suddenness to separate. One of the things that you'll notice with him very early on watching him is he's stiff. He's a stiff route runner. He doesn't give you any sticks at the top of the route, no shoulder fakes. He doesn't try. He tells you where he's going right away. Right? And that takes us right to our next weakness. No deception in his route running. Like the reason that the safety from North Carolina, or really any game that I watched him in, guys were able to be either right there to break it up, make it a difficult catch for him, or hit him upon him catching the football, is because he didn't sell the route. He's running a speed cut, and normally when you run a speed cut, there is no selling it. You just roll out. You get to your 5 and you roll out. You don't stick your foot in the ground. You just roll it. But there are times where he's running an in-breaking route, and you're like, hey, dude, sell him outside. Give him some outside shoulder, head and shoulders, give him a little dandruff, and then go inside. And he just rolls it inside, and they're right there with him because he didn't give them anything to think about. So a lot of his route running is just bland, and it makes it easy for a guy to know exactly where he's going and try to beat him to that spot. Not much of a threat after the catch. He's not a make-you-miss guy. He's not a run-by-you guy. He's not a run-over-you guy, for that matter. He's a guy that catches it, and if there's space and opportunity, he might make something happen. But outside of that, he's not going to do much with the football in his hand. And finally, he will have the occasional drop. I mentioned that already. I'm not going to really harp on it too much because I think his hands are fine. But there is the occasional drop from a guy of his stature. You don't expect that. So I'd like to see him clean it up. And really, for the most part in this draft, not a lot of drops with these tight ends. So, when you see guys dropping, and of all the positions on the field that you're throwing the football to, running back, wide receivers, the tight end is the one guy you're like, hey, I can't have you dropping the football because you're the safety blanket. You're the guy that the quarterback's looking for on 1st and 10, and it's a simple check down over the ball. He's looking for you for a 5-6 yard gain to get that set of downs started, or to get into a very manageable second down or even third down situation. Or if it's 3rd and 5, he's looking at you to quickly set up shop at the sticks and get it to you. You got to catch the football as a tight end. Got to catch the football as a tight end at the NFL level. So my projection for him is a day 2 selection. I think he'll go. I personally wouldn't be comfortable spending a pick on him until the 3rd round. I could see somebody snatching him up late 2nd, though. Wouldn't shock me, but I think he's more of a 3rd round selection than a 2nd rounder. My comp for him is Max Williams. I look at him, and I see a lot of Max Williams in Hunter Long. I remember Max Williams coming out of Minnesota. Wasn't that big of a Max Williams fan, but if you remember, that was a terrible tight end draft that year, so much so that the draft advisory board told Max Williams to go back to school, and he decided to come out anyway because he realized there's nothing in this draft stopping me from being the first tight end taken, and he ultimately was in the 2nd round. So I see a lot of Max Williams, height, athleticism, ball skills in Hunter Long. I didn't love Max Williams. Max Williams has had a very average career to this point, and I could see the same thing happening to Hunter Long. Hopefully he's a little bit more successful than that of Max Williams, but I think their attributes are very similar entering the league. Hunter Long right now is my 6th rated tight end in the 2021 NFL draft. Have a super chat real quick. This one is from Overdar the Obtuse. Thank you for the super chat, Overdar the Obtuse, who writes, Louie, you provide the best watch the football content on YouTube. Question, is there a banana in the tailpipe in this draft? I think it is Mac Jones. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think Mac Jones is going to stink as much as I think he may be overdrafted. And again, if he turns out to be a stud, nobody will come back and say, hey, they still took him 3rd overall if the 49ers decide to pull the trigger on him at 3. If he's good, nobody will care about that. But if he's, average, then yeah, we're gonna poke and prod at the fact that they decided to trade up to 3 to draft a guy that most people think they could have stayed at 12 and have gotten. Honestly, I don't think he was going to ascend to the level where they were going to have to trade up from 12. I think they could have sat right at 12 if he was the guy. And again, you don't want to sit and play the waiting game. If you want a quarterback, go get him. That's what they're doing. But I think they were more along the lines of saying, hey, we just want to go up to 3 just in case. We can't be sure, but just in case the Jets are feeling frisky. They hadn't traded Sam Darnold at that time, and nobody knew exactly what they were going to do. I knew what they were going to do. You knew what they were going to do, but there was still this assumption out there, hey, Sam Darnold could be the guy. They could be going in a different direction. Or if they were going to take a quarterback, it could be Justin Fields. It could be somebody else. It could be Trey Lance. Who knows? I just want to be at 3. San Francisco, I felt like was saying, I just want to be at 3 just in case they don't take Zach Wilson, because that's who we really want. And so I don't think the intent was let's go to 3 to get Mac Jones. I think it was let's go to 3 and be in a position just in case our guy falls to us, we can collect him. If not, the fallback plan is Mac Jones. That's what it seems to be right now. Yes, for me, he would be the banana in the tailpipe. But I'll tell you another guy that I'm not really feeling, and I think he's my banana in the tailpipe. I won't take yours. The guy for me that is the banana in the tailpipe is Kwity Paye. I just don't see it. A lot of people think he's got all this upside, and maybe he does. I just don't see what everybody else sees out of Kwity Paye. I don't. So I need to see that. I'm not buying Kwity Paye, and people have him as their number 1 rated edge rusher in this draft. Okay, show me. I need him to show me. That's my banana in the tailpipe, is Kwity Paye. I'm not a big Kwity Paye fan. So thank you for that super chat, Overdar the Obtuse. My number 5 tight end in this draft is Kenny Yeboah. Now, this is the guy that had the biggest leap for me in this process. I was exposed to Kenny Yeboah on a Saturday night in, I want to say, either September or October. I was randomly flipping the TV around. Me and my girl were watching some Netflix, and we were taking a little break. and Alabama and Ole Miss are duking it out. And I'm talking about, this is before we knew Alabama was going to be that good last year from a record standpoint. Because when I'm watching them against Ole Miss, I'm saying, oh, they're going to lose a game or two this year because they can't stop anybody, because Ole Miss was going up and down the field, and one of the guys killing them that night was Kenny Yeboah. And so he was on my radar after that game. I didn't know what year he was in or any of that stuff, but I said, man, this guy looks impressive. And that's the game right there. That's the crown jewel of his collegiate career right there. That Alabama game, he shows off a lot of different things that I think gets you excited. At least I can't speak for anybody else. Gets me excited watching him and projecting him to the next level. Let's flip his card over and take a look at what Kenny Yeboah brings to the table. For me, the first thing is his size and catch radius. I don't know how fast he is. He did not run a 40, but I can tell you he can scoot. Watch him on film. He can scoot. I'd like to say he's a 4.68, guy. I'd put him anywhere in that 4.67 to 4.72 range. I'm right now. I feel bullish. He's a sub 4.7 guy, so I put him at 4.68. Either way, he can scoot. The Alabama game tells you all you need to know. Go watch that, and you can see him running away from guys. And he's got the size at 6'4", 250 pounds, right around. And he's got the catch radius. This guy's got an 81-inch wingspan. And just to give you a bit of a reference point, the number one tight end in this draft, Kyle Pitts, has an 83-inch wingspan, and his arms are vines. So 83, well, you're only talking, 2 inches less here on Kenny Yeboah. So he's got quite the reach and catch radius, which is a gold mine for a quarterback when you're trying to throw the football to a tight end, because a lot of times that tight end is going to be a lot taller than the defender trying to guard him. If you can throw it up a little bit higher, because he's got a catch radius that extends way outside of his frame, that makes it even harder for the defender to try to get his hands on the football. So that's another thing Kenny Yeboah brings to the table. Athleticism and quickness. He's a guy that can win with route running based off of just sheer athleticism and quickness. I love that in guys, which is why I have Kenny Yeboah rated as my number 5 tight end in this draft, because of his quickness and athleticism. And again, not a guy that had a bunch of opportunities in college, but what he was able to do with his opportunities, I was happy to see him take advantage of that. And so this is a guy that I think projects well to the NFL from an athleticism, separating, route running, quickness standpoint. Soft hands. Catches just about everything you throw in his direction, even the ones that are a little bit further than you would like it to be. He's still able to reach out there and collect it. So I really like his ability to catch the football. Competes as a blocker, another one of these move tight ends, another one of these guys lined up as a wing, as an H-back type, where he's just moving all around the formation. You can split this guy out, which they did quite a bit at Ole Miss, and you can ask him to block. If you're throwing a wide receiver screen, you want a guy in there that's going to compete as a blocker. Kenny Yeboah is your man. If you want to send him in motion, he'll come across, he'll block on the opposite side, on the back side of a play. You need him to be the lead blocker to come up in as a counter lead. He can do that as well. So he competes as a blocker. Can create separation. I talked about that already. Really good quickness. And with that quickness comes the ability to get vertical. I watched him get vertical quite a bit. And when you see guys get vertical, the biggest thing you notice is they get up on the defenders quickly. Like the amount of speed from which they're projecting you to have and what actually happens are two different things. And that's what you want. You want guys underestimating just how fast you are, because they don't get the engine revved up. They don't open up their hips to run. They're looking at you. All right, this guy's going to break his route off. He's going to stop any minute now. He's going to go back towards the football. He's going to break in or out. He's not going to run by me. And once they realize, oh shit, this guy isn't going to pull up and he's not going to hit the brakes. He's not coming back to the ball. He's not going in or out. He's going up. You got him if you've got enough speed. And he's one of those guys that is a vertical threat that can hurt you up the seam. And you saw that a ton in 2020. Run after the catch. Again, that's where he did most of his damage versus Alabama. And you watch him in the Kentucky game, same thing. You watch him in the game versus Florida, same thing. You're seeing this guy catch it and make something happen after the catch. And again, that's what you're looking for at the next level. A guy that can take a 7-yard completion and turn it into a 27-yard gain. Those are the guys that are true difference makers at the tight end position at the next level. Hey, look, you want the chain mover. You want the guy that you can force it to on 3rd and 5, and it could be 2 guys right there, and you force it in there, and he's going to come down with it for you and move the sticks. But there's something to be said about the guy that can take the 7-yard completion and turn it into a 27-yard gain. Those are the guys that are special and the guys that every team in the NFL is looking for. Formational flex. Like I said, that's a given with most of these athletically gifted tight ends. They're going to move around. A lot of these guys aren't inline wide blockers. They're not asked to stay stationary and block the guy in front of you or, come off of this double team and get to the second level. They're moving these guys around. They're out wide. They're in the slot. They're in motion. They're a wing. They're all over the place. So he brings that to the table as well, does Kenny Yeboah. And then his 2020 season. The 2020 season for me was the reason I ranked him as high as I did at number 5. I project his ability to come into the league and have a really strong effect on an offense if he is in the right locale with the right coordinator, right quarterback, right system for his skill set. I think he could come in and do some damage in this league, and the 2020 season is what did that for me. So here's a guy that comes over, transfers from Temple as a graduate transfer. So played his first 3 years in college football at the University of Temple, transfers over, and you're seeing this a lot, especially to the SEC, because, look, that's the most high-profile conference in the nation. If you can go and ball in the SEC, you can ball anywhere. So he goes to the SEC, to Ole Miss. First year, new head coach Lane Kiffin comes on board, changes the whole dynamics of that offense. They're now a pass-happy offense. They can still run it, but they're looking to throw the football all around the yard. They can score points. They're dynamic and explosive now. And Yeboah really benefited from that. He saw career highs in every statistical category, and he only played in 8 games. He did it in less games. His 27 receptions in 2020, the most of his career. His 524 yards might have been more yardage in that one season than the first 3 years at Temple combined. And then he averaged damn near 20 yards a pop to go along with 6 touchdowns, which his 6 touchdowns in 2020 were the amount he had the 3 years previous combined. So he went to Ole Miss and lit it up. And I'm happy for him, but I'm also looking at that 2020 season and saying, all right, you got something. There's something there to Kenny Yeboah that you can take and extrapolate to the next level and say, this guy can do it at the NFL level and be a difference maker. Weaknesses. More of a move tight end than an inline wide. I've told you that's really more of what you're going to get with a lot of these tight ends, so I'm not going to harp on that too much, but it is worth mentioning. Inconsistent sustain in the run game. That's something that he would need to clean up moving forward and does need to work on. Is he makes physical contact, not afraid of contact whatsoever, doesn't mind mixing it up, doesn't matter who it is, D lineman, linebacker, safety, corner, he'll mix it up with anybody. He just doesn't sustain the block a lot of times. So initial contact is awesome, doesn't sustain. And then the last weakness is just more of a question than it is a weakness. How fast and consistent are you? So I talked about the 1 year in 2020 in the SEC, him having a stellar year and really, I think, catapulting his draft stock. But at Temple, he was all right, but he wasn't anything to write home about. He wasn't a guy that was really on the radar. So how consistent are you? Was last year just a one-off, or is this something we can expect from you moving forward? And then just how fast are you anyway? You didn't run a 40. I think I know, but I'd love to put a time to that. We probably will never be able to put a time to it because when else does a guy run a 40 other than right before the draft? If you haven't run a 40 now and you're not planning on running one before the draft, you're not going to run one. But I think he's plenty fast for the NFL game. I told you I think he's a 4.68 guy. If I had to guess, anywhere from 4.67 to 4.72, which is plenty fast in the NFL at the tight end position. I project this guy to be a late day 2 to early day 3 pick. So I wouldn't have a problem with someone spending a 3rd round pick on him, which I think someone will snatch him up in the 3rd round. But I wouldn't be shocked if he went in the 4th round. I don't see him going any later than the 4th round, though. And in a weak tight end draft class, I think he's going to ultimately go late day 2. So we'll see what happens. My comp for him is Gerald Everett. I think Gerald Everett is a slightly better athlete than Kenny Yeboah, which is fine, but they're very comparable in their size and, more importantly, their movement skills. When I watched them, both of them, and I remember Gerald Everett coming out of South Alabama, I said, he looks a lot like Gerald Everett does Kenny Yeboah. I just see a lot of the same movement skills. And honestly, the way he was utilized in LA with the Rams is the way I see Kenny Yeboah being best utilized at the NFL level. So we'll see. It wouldn't even shock me. Gerald Everett moved on from LA in this offseason, went to Seattle, signed a 1-year deal there. I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams ended up drafting Kenny Yeboah. It'd make a ton of sense because, like I said, it'd be replacing the guy you just lost, and they're almost like clones of one another. So it would not shock me if Kenny Yeboah ends up being drafted in LA. We'll see what happens. But Kenny Yeboah, right now, my 5th rated tight end in the 2021 NFL draft. Got a super chat, and this super chat is from my guy Tony P56. Thank you for the super chat, Tony P56, who writes, Lou, is it just me, or do I see other Washington football team content creators make content based on some of your key points and perspectives? Like, comment, and sub, y'all. I couldn't tell you. I don't watch any of them other than my guy Tones a lot of times. I don't really catch a lot of the other programming, honestly. I'm just so busy with what I got going on. And if they do, that's fine. I don't have a problem with anybody. I said it's enough out here for all of us to eat. So if they're making content based off of the stuff that I'm talking about, more power to them. I have no problems with that. That's actually flattering if that is in fact the case. That they're watching my content first and foremost, and then they're coming up with content based off of what I'm talking about. I got no problems with that because a lot of times when I say we, anybody that's a content creator, you're getting some of your content from someone else's content at some point. Whether I'm taking an idea from Bleacher Report, reading an article, or I read an article in the Washington Post, or I read some article on SI.com or whatever, or I watched something somewhere and it gave me an idea. Maybe I disagree with what they said, and so I did a whole 30-minute segment on my podcast on why I disagree with this take or whatever the case may be. We all get content from other places. And now you make it your own. Now, if they're not doing that, look, I'm not here to judge. But you take the content and you make it your own. So whatever the case may be, hey, I appreciate you checking for me, Tony P. That's what's most important, is that you continue to support the Louie T Network. And as he mentioned, like, comment, and sub up. All right, so if you haven't done so, like the video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button above all else. And comment too. Be really active in the live chat. And when this video posts, come back and comment again. All of those things help with the analytics of this video and help with the YouTube algorithm. So, even if you've been in here chopping it up, if you have something to say, come back and drop it in the comment section. All those things help. Hitting the like button helps. So really do appreciate you guys. On to my number 4 tight end in this draft, and it's Brevin Jordan of the U. Tight end from the University of Miami. And this is a guy that I think is hit or miss for some people. There's a lot that you have to kind of delve into with Brevin Jordan. I remember first laying eyes on him like 3 years ago and thinking this guy's going to be a stud. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I feel like it was 3 years ago. And then it just kind of like was meh from there. And not to say that he didn't produce good numbers, because he did. I don't think he ever really had the impact that I thought he was going to have. And, what's funny is that his best year statistically was 2020. And it makes sense because here's a guy that I thought was going to post massive numbers in his career and never really did. I think the talent that he has suggests that his numbers at Miami probably should have been better than what they ultimately were. And again, you can chalk it up to some really, really porous quarterback play for a couple of years there before they got the transfer from Houston in 2020. Man, they had some lean years at the quarterback position, man. So, a bunch of brothers back there running around trying to make plays. It wasn't pretty. So I think his numbers could have been better had he had a better quarterback situation, as I mentioned earlier with Hunter. Was it Hunter Long or no, Trey Mckitty? So you see it all the time with these tight ends. I think he was a guy that didn't benefit from his quarterback situation. But you saw this year when he had a better quarterback, his numbers spiked. And he had career highs across the board. So let's flip his card, talk about why Brevin Jordan is my number 4 tight end in this draft. So we look at his strengths, and you start with his speed. 4.67 40 is what he ran at his pro day, which is plenty fast. As I told you, anything sub 4.7 is fast in my book at the NFL level for the tight end position. And you can see on tape that he's got some wheels. And the 4.67 is evident of that. Athleticism, he's a guy that can do a lot of the things you want to see done in your move tight end, a guy that you're going to split out, flex, move around. You want that athleticism, the ability to break a dude off, to widen a defender, just to go inside and create a better throwing lane and window for your quarterback. He has all of those things. The route running, the ability to break a dude off at the stem of a route to create the separation that you're looking for. He's got the ability to do a lot of those things. Reliable hands. He's a guy that I trust. 3rd and 7, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 13. I trust Brevin Jordan in those situations. If I've got to zing it to him and he's got to catch it in a tight window, I trust Brevin Jordan to come down with the football. And that's what reliable hands are to me at the tight end position. When I need you, can I deliver you the football? And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the most ideal situation. It might be extremely low because there's a defender beating down on you. And if I put it anywhere other than low and slightly behind you, you're either going to take a shot or it's going to get broken up. Can you go down and dig that thing out and come up with the catch for me? I think Brevin Jordan is one of those types of guys. Toughness and can catch in traffic. His toughness is something that shouldn't be questioned. This is a guy that played through a ton of injuries while at the U. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's physical. He's not a guy that you talk about toughness as something that he doesn't bring to the table. He can catch it in traffic, as I just mentioned. Sometimes I did see some drops in traffic situations, but again, much like I talked about with Hunter Long, more times than not, you see him catch it in traffic than drop it. Competes in the run game. I don't love him in pass pro at all, and I think he can be better in the run game, but it's not from a lack of want to or a lack of not wanting to be physical or not wanting to give maximum effort. He's just not good at it, especially in the pass department. In the run game, he competes. He's physical, but you get holding penalties from him, a ton of them. You get him not being able to get to a reach block and having his guy make the tackle or, bust the play up. He overruns blocks quite a bit. So he competes, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Route running ability, as I mentioned, this is a guy that can run routes, he can separate. I love that about him. Vertical threat, he can get up the field. That 4.67 tells you all you need to know, but he's a guy that definitely can stretch the football field vertically. Run after the catch, as I mentioned, not necessarily all the time do you get run after the catch with tight ends. They're usually big, lumbering guys that don't give you a lot with the football in their hands. Brevin Jordan isn't that guy at Miami. They would a lot of times feature him in a bunch set. He would back up and they would throw it to him, get a couple of blockers out in front and see if he couldn't make something happen. So, you don't throw it to a guy at the line of scrimmage if you don't think he's got the ability to make something happen after the catch. Brevin Jordan does, and so he is a guy with some run after the catch. Formational flex, as I mentioned, with the tight end position, it's almost a must in college football nowadays. You've got to be able to move around and have your presence felt all around the football field. Backfield, wing, slot, out wide, in motion, you name it, you got to be able to do it, and Brevin Jordan can do all of those things. And then I just think the consistent production that he provided during his tenure at the U can't go unnoticed. This is a guy that had over 32 catches or more every year at Miami, a guy that his last 2 years pretty much had 500 or more yards receiving, just fell 5 yards short of 500 in 19. And in 18, as a freshman, he jumped on the scene and had 32 catches and 287 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is a lot more than most guys have in their freshman year. So this is a guy that was pretty consistent his entire career. I thought he could have been even better had he had better quarterback play at Miami. So I thought the production was pretty damn consistent when you consider his situation and the things that he went through while at Miami. Speaking of which, let's get to his weaknesses. Height, length, and catch radius, not, ideal necessarily. They're not necessarily weaknesses as I have them listed as much as they're not ideal. You're 6'3", you're 6'2", 6'3", and he's really 6'2". When you're 6'2", and you don't have the long arms, you don't have the catch radius that some of these 6'4", 6'5" guys have. Talked about Kenny Yeboah with an 81-inch wingspan. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts later on. He's got an 83-inch wingspan. That's what you're looking for as a quarterback. I can not be right, and my guy can make me right. I can be a little bit off and a little bit errant with my throw, and my guy can still go up and make something happen. You don't get that same catch radius with Brevin Jordan. You just don't. Leaves a lot to be desired as a blocker. I told you he's not my guy in the pass pro game. I wouldn't even ask him to stay in and block as a pass blocker, which is not his strength anyway. You want an athlete like him out in the route anyhow, but if you get a protection where you look up and you got an extra rusher coming and you need him to stay in, he's going to have to be better than what he was at Miami, simply put. And I just think he needs to be a little bit better in his base as a blocker. I think there's some of the little fundamentals that he can get better at it. It's not like a want-to thing or a lack of effort. He just needs to be better. He overruns blocks. He doesn't get to reach blocks fast enough to cut guys off on the backside of play, so they're able to cut off the backside cutback lanes and things of that nature. He doesn't have his hands in the right place, so he's getting holding penalties, things of that nature. He's just got to be better, more technically sound, and with some coaching, I could see him getting better and improving in that department. But the biggest thing for Brevin Jordan is the injury history. If you're a team thinking about selecting a tight end, you got to go through his injury history with a fine-tooth comb. He's got to check out medically. You've got to feel really good about what you're investing in here because he's got a lengthy injury history. The guy is a tough guy. He plays the game hard and physically, and he's paid the price for that to this point of his career. This is a guy that over the last 3 years, so all 3 years at Miami, he's missed at least a game in every single season, and he's missed 7 games over the last 3 years, including an ankle injury that cost him 3 games this year. He had a Liz Frank injury last year that cost him 3 games, and he's also dealt with an AC shoulder joint injury. So you're talking about a guy that's had all types of injuries, an AC joint, a Liz Frank injury, which is not a game. When you're talking about big guys and their foot, that we got problems on our hands. Those types of injuries, if they linger and continue to persist, they can end careers. And then you're talking about a guy that had an ankle injury, severely sprained ankle this year that really cost him at the mid portion of the season. He was on pace to really tear it up at Miami this year had the ankle injury not happened. So that's something you have to consider with him is, hey, am I going to get a guy that can stay healthy or am I getting a guy that's injury prone? If you are able to get past his injury history, there's a lot here to like. I've got a day 2 grade on him. I project him to go in the second round. I don't see how he makes it out of the second round. He's not making it out of day 2. If he doesn't go in the second round, he'll definitely go in the third round. And the only way I don't see him going in the second round is if teams ding him on his injury history. But if he is medically cleared and they just had all these prospects meet up in Indianapolis to be tested medically, because that's what Indy is really for, the combine more so than anything else. We love to talk about how fast the guy ran or how high he jumped or if he had a great day catching it. But they really care more so about the medical, which is what you get in Indy. So they had a lot of these prospects meet in Indy. And I'm assuming he's going to be one of those guys because the medical is important for a guy like Brevin Jordan. But I see him as a Jonnu Smith type. That's my comp for him. Same size, same athleticism, same body type and build, same movement skills. Everything about Brevin Jordan. This is my most secure and comfortable comp is Brevin Jordan to Jonnu Smith. They're the exact same player, if you ask me. Same size, same athleticism, same movement skills, same ability to catch the football, same physicality in the run game. They look like splitting images. If you just changed the name on the back of the jersey, if you slapped a Patriots jersey on Brevin Jordan and put Smith on the back, I would think it was Jonnu Smith, to be honest with you. So I feel probably this and the Kyle Pitts comp are the two I feel the most secure about. But nonetheless, I don't see how he gets passed over in the second round. I think he's a second-round pick all day long, all day strong. Brevin Jordan, my number 4 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft. My number 3 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft is Penn State's Pat Freiermuth. Here's a guy that a lot of people call Baby Gronk. Nah, I don't see that at all. Okay, let's not get carried away with some of the comparisons. Gronk is a unique physical specimen that this league has really never seen before at the tight end position. He's a different breed. I shouldn't say never seen before, but we rarely see guys like Gronk. So Pat Freiermuth is not Baby Gronk, okay? I would say Travis Kelce is much closer to Gronk than Pat Freiermuth ever will be. But that said, doesn't mean that Pat Freiermuth doesn't have a chance to be a really good tight end at the next level. And so let's talk about what Pat Freiermuth brings to the table and why he is my 3rd rated tight end. And it would not shock me if he was the 2nd tight end to come off the board in the 2021 NFL draft. Let's flip his card over and take a look. So first thing you'll notice about Pat Freiermuth is his size. Guy's 6'5", 250 pounds. Gives you that radius that you're looking for in terms of catching a football. Got the athleticism that you like. Even though he did not run a 40, he did have shoulder surgery, so he did not work out at the Penn State Pro Day. But one thing we can all acknowledge, if there's one school that produces the most uncanny and insane athletes we've ever seen in our lives following this sport, it's Penn State University. I mean, we saw 2 more athletic freaks that they produced this year, and Jason Owe and also the linebacker Micah Parsons, just ridiculous, off the charts 40s and movement skills. But we've seen that. Mike Gesicki, freak. Saquon Barkley, freak. We see this all the time at Penn State. I mean, hell, even Washington got caught up drafting a safety that blew up the combine, and Troy Apke, freak from Penn State, ran a sub 4.4, 4.3, 4.40 or something crazy like that. And so I wouldn't doubt Pat Freiermuth from an athletic standpoint, although I don't think he tears it up in a 40. You know what I'm saying? Like he looks more like a 4.69 to 4. I really think he's more so 4.71 to 4.75, somewhere in that neighborhood, and that's okay. That's okay. So he's got athleticism though. He can move. Reliable hands, a guy that I feel really comfortable throwing the football to. If I'm a quarterback, Pat Freiermuth is the type of guy, and you saw it at Penn State. There was a steady diet of Pat Freiermuth running 5-yard stop routes, running 5 yards, turn around, stop. Find the soft spot in the zone, sit down, stop. And if he had 23 catches this year, he had 43 the year before. Of the 66 catches he had in the last 2 years, I'd say that 30 of them were of the 5-yard stop variety. Just run 5 yards, turn around, find a soft spot in the zone, sit down. So, but in that kind of situation or a slant where you got defenders bearing down on you, don't think that they didn't watch film and they don't know he's going to run a 5-yard stop and sit down. They got to make sure they got to cover their bases, make sure he doesn't run right by him. But they're closing in on him. And so those windows get even tighter. You do that 2 or 3 times, those windows get tighter. Still catching it, though. Still catching it. Toughness and catching traffic, which leads us right into that. He's a tough guy. He'll take shots over the middle, run through arm tackles, which is why he got the moniker Baby Gronk, because he's running through arm tackles and dragging defenders. You saw more of that in 2019 than you did in 2020. But he's a tough guy. He's physical, catch it in traffic, take shots, hold on to the football. Watched one game, I want to say it was against Nebraska, takes a hellacious shot over the top, but holds on to it. So he has that ability to do that. Might have been the Minnesota game, one of the two, in 2019. Competes as a blocker. I think he can be better. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But again, the willingness, the ability to compete is there. The spirit, the essence of wanting to get the job done is there. That's all I need. Can work the field vertically. He can get up the field. Again, another one of these guys similar to Hunter Long, that if you get in their space, all right, you get in their face, delete the airspace, get up in their chest, lay hands on them, you can impede progress. They're not one of these guys like Kyle Pitts that'll juke you or avoid contact or slap your hands down, get off me, and run by you. They're one of those guys that'll run right into you like, hey, I used to get so frustrated when I would watch TJ Hawkinson. I'm like, hey, stop smacking into dudes. The goal is to get up the field and avoid guys, not run right into them. Run around him. You have the speed to run around guys and make them pay. Don't run into them. That's what they want you to do, so it'll slow you down. And he's one of those guys that'll run right into people. Like, run around him. Avoid contact. You can do it. You have the speed to get vertical. Physical run after the catch. Again, that's the part where he got the moniker Baby Gronk from. And you see it. Again, go back to 2019, 2018, there's a bit of it. You didn't see a lot of that in 2020, though. You didn't see as much of it in 2020. And it was a small sample size. You see as much of it. But you saw a lot of that, dragging dudes and getting every single yard that was available. You saw a lot of that in 2019 when he had his best year of his collegiate career. Catch radius, talked about that already. 6'5" frame, you get catch radius a lot of times. Red zone target. He's a guy that is the favorite of a quarterback, the kind of guy you can throw a back shoulder fade to. He'll adjust to it, go get the football, that type of thing. So you saw it in his career, 16 career touchdowns for Pat Freiermuth. And before 2020, this was a guy, 7 touchdowns in 19 and 8 in 18. So this is a guy that finds the end zone, has a nose for the goal line. Formational flex, as I mentioned, not a guy that lines up in the traditional wide tight end alignment that you would like him to be able to do a little bit more of. He was always off the ball, more of a wing and an F tight end, as they call it, where you move guys around all over the formation, split them out, slot, as I mentioned numerous times. These are the types of attributes that is required of the tight end position now in the new age of football. You've got to be able to move around as a tight end. And Pat Freiermuth can do exactly that. Consistent production. As I mentioned, this is a guy that never had less than 300 yards receiving in his entire career. And in 4 games in 2020, he still managed to have 23 catches for 310 yards and a touchdown. So even when he really wasn't available, he still was able to make his impact felt. So this is a guy that every year produced stats at Penn State. 300 this year, 500 last year, and the year before that, close to 370 yards. So you're talking about a guy that put up some big-time numbers year in, year out, consistent numbers at Penn State. You go to his weaknesses. Wasn't showcased as a wide blocker. He was never in line at Penn State. I mean, rarely. They had a guy for that. They were like, hey, we got a guy for that. We don't need Pat Freiermuth to do this. Number 83 can do it for us. We don't need Pat to do that. Pat's going to be off the ball. He's going to be our wing. We're going to move him around, but we don't want him on the ball. Probably the reason they made that decision is they made a conscious decision. Hey, he's still developing as a blocker is my next weakness, and you could see it. You get some blocks where he'd whiff. You get some blocks where he'd engage, and then that guy would disengage and make a play. he's still developing as a blocker. You can see that he still has work to do in that department. But again, the want to is there, and that's what matters for me the most. Not tons of pure separation. That's the next weakness. I don't see a guy that's a winner at the next level. I see a guy that is going to have to learn how to win. He may have enough quicks, more quicks than I'm giving him credit for. It was not showcased at Penn State. They did not put him in a lot of positions to showcase the quicks. That said, you don't have to be quick to win. Jason Witten was far from quick. Zach Ertz is far from quick. You just got to know how to run routes. I could see Pat Freiermuth evolving into one of those guys. If he gets with the right coach or he gets with the right veteran tight end that can show him the tricks of the trade, I think he'll be just fine as a route runner and separating and things of that nature, because he'll learn how to lean on a guy, lean inside because you're going outside. He'll learn how to use the little chicken wing, just a slight push off, not much, not enough to get you the PI, the OPI. He'll learn those things, and if he's able to do that, he could turn into a beast at the next level. And then he had shoulder surgery in 2020, which cost him the final 5 games of his collegiate career. Part of the reason he's not working out at the Penn State Pro, he did not work out, I should say, at the Penn State Pro Day, and that we can't put a 40 time to his tape is because he's coming off of shoulder surgery. So you just want to make sure you're fully healthy and ready to go by the time training camp starts. So that's something else that you need to be able to vet if you're a team looking for a tight end is, hey, is that shoulder good? Successful surgery? We all clear there? There's no scars there, no reason for us to be concerned in the future that this may crop up again? If you get the green light, Pat Freiermuth is definitely a day 2 selection, which is where I project him to be. I think he's going to be a second-round pick. I don't see any way in hell he gets out of the second round. In a league where you're void of real targets at the tight end position in a draft that is not loaded with tight ends that get you excited, when you find one that does, you got to pull the trigger. And I see a team pulling the trigger on Pat Freiermuth in the second round. If everything checks out, including that shoulder, he'll be off the board at some point in the second round of this draft. My comp for him, I've heard Gronk. I've heard Heath Miller. I think Heath Miller is a disrespect to Pat Freiermuth's athletic exploits. Heath Miller was never an athlete. He damn near ran a 4.9, if I recall, somewhere in that 4.85, 4.86, 4.87 range, coming out of Virginia. He did not have any bit of vertical separation. That was not Heath Miller's game. If you recall, he was a guy that worked underneath, but he was physical after the catch, which I could see how you could attribute that trait to Pat Freiermuth. And he was just a consistent guy. And I think Pat Freiermuth would take a Heath Miller career in a heartbeat. Most tight ends would. That said, I think he's more Todd Heap than he is Gronk or Heath Miller. A big athletic guy that has a chance to really be a difference maker at the next level if he's able to stay healthy and learn some of the tricks of the trade. He more, to me, resembles a Todd Heap type than any of the other guys that I've seen him comp to. So for me, Pat Freiermuth is my number 3 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft, and I think he will be selected in the second round. So now we get to my number 2 tight end in the 2021 NFL draft. Some may call me a little biased. Go right ahead, knock yourself out. I am a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, but Tommy Tremble, for me, is a guy that I look at and I just see infinite growth and possibilities with. And we talk about projection all the time in the draft and how sometimes the numbers just simply aren't there and you have to project. And my greatest example of that this year is Kwity Paye. You got all these people swearing that this guy is going to come in and be a difference maker on the defensive line, and I just don't see it. And the numbers don't reflect that, but the numbers don't always tell the story. And so you've got to be able to project. And I, because I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan, have watched his entire career, and I can project what he's going to be at the next level. And I could even say that he's got a chance to transform his game into something even greater than what I have him comp to be. But even if he's just what I comp him to be, he's going to be one of the best in the league to be that kind of player. So Tommy Tremble, for me, athletically is better than any other tight end in this draft, not named. Now, again, the kid from the Chilean ex-basketball player would leapfrog Tommy Tremble in the athleticism department. But anybody not named Kyle Pitts in this draft, Tommy Tremble is a better athlete than at the tight end position. And just based off of that, his physicality in the run game, and all of the things I could see him becoming and evolving into at the next level is the reason I have him at number 2. And let's flip the card over and talk about all of these things and why I really like Tommy Tremble. So first thing we talk about is the size, speed, and athleticism that he brings to the table. So you're talking about a guy that's 6'3", and in the role that he's carved out for himself right now, he is more of a Swiss Army knife, a chess piece, if you will. One of these guys that just moves around, can do a little of everything. And there's a lane that has been created. We'll talk about that for guys like Tommy Tremble. And they're becoming more and more valuable if you know how to utilize those types of players. So at 6'3", he's big for the kind of player that I project him to be. The speed at 4.6 flat, excuse me, not 6 flat, 4.6 flat is exceptional for what he's going to be asked to do. You know, you're getting into that elite territory as a tight end / H-back in the NFL. When you start talking about damn near sub 4.5, that's in a different level. You know, when we get to sub 4.5 guys and you get into the 4.4 range, that's insane. That's insanity. All right. When we, you know, when the Ole Miss tight end that was drafted by the Giants in the first round ran a 4.41, our heads almost exploded because tight ends don't do that. You know, that's ridiculous. When Kyle Pitts but he's like 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", you know. Kyle Pitts is 6'5", you know, damn near 6'6", and he's running a 4.44, a Moses Malone 4.44, and you're like, whoa. Those are the exceptions to the rule, though. Like, those guys don't grow on trees, and we don't see those types of athletes every day. So when you get a 4.6 guy, you should treasure him. You know, like, don't look at, oh, well, he's not that fast because he's not 4.44. No. He's fast. 4.6 flat. It's plenty fast. So he's got the speed. He's got the athleticism too, man. And that's the thing I think a lot of people underestimate with Tommy Tremble because you don't see the numbers. Oh, he's not a receiver type. He's a blocker because the numbers aren't there. Au contraire, my friend. You know, you didn't watch enough of it. So let me explain to you that he's got all the athleticism you need at the next level to be a difference maker. And let's go through the list of things. The respectable hands is something that I think he has. He catches the football very well. There are a couple of double catches on tape. You know, there's a couple of double catches when I watched games, but he always came down with it. It never ended up being incomplete. So I trust him. You throw it to him, I trust he's going to catch it. I got no issues with Tommy Tremble, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 yards down the field. No problems whatsoever. Physicality and toughness. This is the thing that's going to get him drafted as the second tight end, I believe, in this year's draft, is he comes in right away, fresh out of the packaging. No need to assemble, no batteries necessary. Right out of the packaging, batteries and blocking are included. This guy comes in with a battery in his back, ready to tear some shit up in the run game. And in whatever way you need. You need him as a fullback, he can do that. Lead blocker, he can do that. You need him in line as a Y, he can do that. You need him off the ball as a wing, as a lead on a counter, he can do that. You need him in motion to help on a jet sweep that's coming across. You send him in motion, and then the guy you give it to is coming across the field, and you give it to him, and he's the lead blocker outside almost on like a sweep. That's your guy. Whatever you need, he's the man for the job in the blocking department. He's physical and ruthless as a blocker. Take your head off and don't care. Blow you up. And you want to know why the Notre Dame run game was so successful this year with Kyron Williams? need look no further than Tommy Tremble. Yeah, we got a really good offensive line, and usually year in, year out, we're churning out offensive linemen. And same can be said for the tight end position. I told you, there are a lot of things that I endorse out of Notre Dame that you go to and go for. I don't endorse you go to Notre Dame looking for a corner. I generally tell you, stay away from the secondary. We might be able to produce a safety like Dirty Harry every now and again, but for the most part, stay away from the secondary. That's not what we do. Every now and again, we'll produce a linebacker. You know, I can endorse one or two of those. Every now and again, a defensive lineman, I'll endorse one of those. But for the most part, we do offensive linemen. We do tight ends. You want one of those? Notre Dame is the school for the job, okay? They'll produce one of those year in, year out. And Tommy Tremble is a guy that I look at, and I say his ruthlessness as a blocker is something you just don't see from the collegiate ranks with a tight end anymore. So when you get a guy that's nasty like that, that's how T.J. Hockenson got drafted top 10 by the Detroit Lions. Not only was he an exceptional athlete and could catch it, they said, oh my God, this guy comes ready to block right now. We don't have to teach him. He can block. Guys get drafted sooner rather than later when you come with that trait already assembled. Vertical threat. The 4.6 speaks for itself. You know, go watch him against South Florida and watch him get over the top of the defense and get vertical. He can get vertical. You didn't see it a lot at Notre Dame because there were other options to get the football to, and they didn't throw it to him a ton. And every year, there's another tight end that he's got to deal with. You know, every year. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But he didn't have a chance, really, to be the guy. And that's what they tried to convince him to come back to be. Was, hey, we'll give you a better opportunity, but he's not dumb because the guy that overtook him this year that was the star at the tight end position, he was only a freshman last year. He's coming back again as a sophomore. You really think I feel like my targets are going to have a massive uptick with the same crop of and cast of characters coming back? And we're losing our quarterback? Nah, I'm going to go ahead and go to the league. I'm good. And I don't blame him. But he can get vertical. Run after the catch. Again, another one of these attributes that goes under the radar with him because he just didn't have a lot of opportunities. But he's a guy that I like getting the ball in his hands. He's not going to make anybody miss or anything like that, but he can run. He can run. And if you come with a lazy arm tackle or you get a blocker out in front of him, he's a guy that can do some damage with the ball in his hands. Like a lot of times at Notre Dame, we ran a ton of shallow crosses. And guys like Tommy Tremble would run the shallow cross. And he's a guy that in man-to-man coverage, if his guy gets bumped or gets caught in the wash and he comes free, just throw it to him. He can turn up the field. Everybody's got their back turn running with their man. He can take a 5-yard pass and turn it into a 35-yard game because he's got that kind of athleticism. So he's got the run after the catch ability. He's a mismatch creator, though. You know, at his core, like the guy I comp him to, he's a mismatch creator. He's a guy you get one-on-one with the tight end, one-on-one with the linebacker, one-on-one with the safety. He's the guy that you split out, and they treat him like a running back, so you get a linebacker on him, not a safety, and he's able to destroy that guy. He's a guy that you move around and create mismatches for you on the football field. And whether he's in the backfield, you know, when I like him the most is when he's lined up in the backfield. When he's looked upon as a tight end, when the defense looks at him as a fullback and they come out in base personnel. And so now he's getting one-on-one with a linebacker, more likely than not the middle linebacker, and he's able to run right by him. I love it. I want to see him utilized in those types of ways. He's a mismatch creator at the next level. And then finally, formational flex and versatility. As I mentioned, this guy lined up everywhere for Notre Dame. You know, somebody asked him during the pro day, you know, what are you? Are you a tight end? Are you an H-back? Are you a mad receiver? Like, what are you? And he's like, I'm all of those things. I'm all of them. And he's right. He's a fullback. He's an H-back. He's a tight end. He's a lead blocker. He's tight end number 2 right now. He hasn't proven he can be tight end 1, but that's okay. He might get in the league and prove that he has the ability to be tight end 1. But right now, he's fullback, lead blocker, tight end 2. He's whatever you need him to be. He's a Swiss Army knife. And it's that formational flexibility and that versatility that I feel like is going to get him drafted. He's what the New England Patriots are always after. He's what the San Francisco 49ers just paid Kyle Juszczyk to continue to be for them. He's what the Baltimore Ravens are always looking for. He's what certain teams in this league identify as a mismatch nightmare. That guy out of the backfield that is just a handful to deal with. So he just brings that to the table. Weaknesses. Inexperience in route running. You have to bring those things up because this guy is a redshirt sophomore, okay, coming out. So only 2 years of real playing time and experience. That coupled with the fact that he was never the guy at the tight end position and was always the second option at the tight end position. He ran some routes, but he wasn't asked to do anything extravagant in terms of route running. He never did the heavy lifting. We didn't have a ton of injuries at the tight end position at Notre Dame. So he was never asked to be the number one guy. All right, we're going to ask you to run these routes over here as we need this production for the tight end position. He was always TE2. So there is a bit of inexperience, and there is a bit of route running that needs to take place with him. He needs to learn how to do the subtleties and the nuances of running routes. I think he does need to have a little bit more work in that department, but that's not to say that he's without that ability. He just doesn't have a ton of experience, which we go back to the inexperience. But really, honestly, the biggest weakness, the only real weakness here with Tommy Tremble is projection versus production. Some people struggle with projecting what a guy is when there isn't any numbers to back up that claim. And part of the evaluation process, as I've learned over the years, is being able to project a guy out. Being able to see what this guy brings from an athletic standpoint and say, all right, you don't have a ton of production. There isn't a ton of film of you doing that X, Y, and Z. But just looking at your body type, looking at what I see from an athletic standpoint and what I can envision you doing, here's how I project you out in our scheme or at the next level. And let's just give you some cold hard facts with Tommy Tremble. And this may turn some teams off, and that's fine. Never had a 100-yard game in his career. As a matter of fact, he never had a game with 70 yards receiving or more. Okay? So the fact that I tell you that this guy's never had a true impact in the passing game, he's never had a true impact on the passing game. 19 receptions for 218 yards and no touchdowns in 2020. And in 2019, 16 receptions for 183 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay? So, and most of those are in a fullback capacity. So, this guy did not a massive impact from a receiving standpoint. And you also have to keep in mind, never had a game with more than 5 catches. Again, he wasn't the go-to guy at Notre Dame. He was Mr. Do-It-All, Mr. Swiss Army Knife. Anything that we needed done that was dirty, considered dirty work, hey, get Tommy to do it. Tommy won't mind. Hey, we need you to sniff out the middle linebacker. Hey, Tommy got it. Hey, Tommy, we need you to be the lead blocker on this wide receiver screen. Tommy got it. We need you to be the lead blocker on this counter play. Hey, Tommy got it. He was behind Cole Kmet in 2019. And this year, Notre Dame had a stud tight end that you'll be hearing about in 2 years that'll be in the draft, and he'll be a first-round pick named Michael Mayer. All right, every time he catches the football, they play the Michael Myers music. It's dope. I love it. And he's big. He's 6'5". He's like 250, 255. He looks more like Gronk than Pat Freiermuth does. And so he was behind Michael Mayer this year. So he was never the guy. So the production isn't going to stand out. But if you can project to the next level what Tommy Tremble is, and you've got to have a plan for him. You can't just draft this dude and say, all right, I need you to just evolve into a true number one tight end. If that's what you're looking for, either you need to have patience or you're making a mistake. If you're drafting him, you got to have a plan. My comp for him is Kyle Juszczyk. Mr. Do-It-All. Swiss Army Knife. really, he's a one-of-a-kind guy. Kyle Juszczyk is unique in this league because there isn't another guy in the league until now with Tommy Tremble, if he's utilized in that capacity, that does the things that Kyle Juszczyk does, which is why San Francisco just paid him a bunch of money to stay in San Fran and be their Swiss Army knife utility man. Lead block. We can hand it to you if we need to. We can throw it to you out of the backfield. We can have you run routes against a linebacker. We can split you out. You could be our second tight end. Kyle Juszczyk does all of that for the 49ers and then some. Tommy Tremble could do the exact same thing. Exact same thing at the next level. And that's what I comp him to right now. But I'm not putting a cap on him, though. I said to myself, why can't he be Chris Cooley in 3 years? If someone works with him, develops him, why can't Tommy Tremble be Chris Cooley in 3 years? 6'3", 245, runs a 4.6, can separate, physical in the running game. Why can't he be Chris Cooley in 3 years? I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. So right now he's Kyle Juszczyk because he's viewed as a Swiss Army knife. But he may turn into one hell of a tight end in this league, a true number one tight end at some point. All the attributes and skills are there. So we'll see what happens. But Tommy Tremble for me is a day 2 pick. He's a second rounder all day long, all day strong. Don't see him making it to the 3rd round. I see somebody snatching him up in the 2nd round just off the strength of his ability to block. He's a 2nd round pick, coupled with the athleticism he brings to the table. Because generally, his kind of blocking you don't get with a 4.6 40 speed attached to it. Normally, his kind of blocking is reserved for tight ends like Lee Smith, who looks like they're an extension of the offensive line. It looks like he's about 280, 285, and a couple of donuts away from being 300 pounds. Not in a 240, 45-pound frame do you usually get this kind of blocking. So he'll be drafted in the 2nd round. Just a matter of when, to whom, and what they're going to ask him to do. Tommy Tremble, my number 2 tight end in the 21 NFL draft. Got a super chat. So I want to get to that super chat real quick. This one is from Door Gunner. Thank you for the super chat, Door Gunner. Greatly appreciate you. Door Gunner writes, I want us to draft wide receiver, tight end, or O-line in the 1st round. Wouldn't object to getting a linebacker round 1 either. Trevor is the only quarterback I like in this draft. The receiver thing in round 1, I'm kind of good on. I'm like, I don't think they're really interested in drafting a receiver. Again, if one were to fall into your lap that you can't pass up, yeah, you pull the trigger. But you know, I'm good on Rashad Bateman or any of these guys that are more likely than not going to be there at 19 in the 1st round for Washington. I'd pass on all of those guys. Tight end, I don't think is something that they'll feel the need to do in round 1. I don't blame them. Kyle Pitts won't be there in the 1st round at 19 unless you're planning on moving up to get him. And because of that, I think you should just wait till the 2nd round. Now, if you have to move up in the 2nd round and get a guy, knock yourself out. But don't miss an opportunity to get something elite at 19 by reaching for a tight end in the 1st round just because you need one. I think that would be foolish if you do that. O-line is probably more likely or not where they decide to go if all else fails. To me, offensive line is their fallback plan. If they can't find, you know, a gem at corner or at linebacker or, you know, at receiver or something like that to fall into their lap, or at safety even, then that's when I think they say, all right, worst case scenario, we got an O-lineman that we like here at 19 that we'll be able to take. So I wouldn't object to getting a linebacker in the 1st round either. As a matter of fact, I still think that that's the leading candidate in the clubhouse for them to select is a linebacker in round 1. I think O-line is right there, though. They're neck and neck. Quarterback, I don't think they're going to draft at all, period. I think they're just going to leave that position alone this year and come back and take a look at it and maybe take a swing at it next year. So we'll see what happens. But I just don't see them pulling the trigger on a quarterback at all in the 2021 NFL draft. Unless they trade up. Again, that'll be the thing. So Number one safety in this draft. You guessed it. Florida tight end Kyle Pitts. Not much more needs to be said. What more can I say? Not much needs to be said here. This guy is the best tight end prospect we've seen in years. I mean, I think you probably have to go all the way back to Kellen Winslow in the 2004 NFL draft to find this kind of a physical specimen and freak coming into the league that people were excited about. I mean, Eric Ebron was good, but people were split on Eric Ebron. He was never viewed as a top 5 pick. This guy's viewed as a top 5 talent in this year's draft. Eric Ebron was never that in his respective draft. You know, Noah Fant was impressive, but he wasn't Kyle Pitts. Neither was T.J. Hawkinson. These are the guys that have gone in the first round, or in the case of Hawkinson and Eric Ebron, those are the guys that have gone top 10. Even O.J. Howard wasn't on this level. You know, we haven't seen a guy look like this, play like this, and come into the league with the type of skill sets that Kyle Pitts has. And so I tell you what, he's a unique specimen and a guy that I think a lot of teams would love to trade up to get their hands on. And so let's flip the card over and take a look at what Kyle Pitts brings to the table. First things first, height, weight, speed specimen. That goes without saying. 6'5", 245, 4'4", 40. You know, the Moses Malone. He checks off every single box. The next thing you look at is his quickness, agility, and his hands. And we got to put these things in packages because there's so many strengths. You got to start packaging them up. Can't talk about them individually. We'll be here all night. You know, quickness. His route running ability is stupid. It's dumb. You know, I'm watching him break off the number one corner on most people's board in this draft in Patrick Surtain II. He's breaking him off like he's a receiver, catching slants in front of his face when he's trying to press him at the line of scrimmage. You know, he's trying to take him uptown, and he had him. I'm like, man, this dude is working this top 10 corner that everybody's ranting and raving about. He's working this dude. That's Kyle Pitts, man. He's not your average tight end, man. So his quickness, his agility, in and out of cuts, in and out of breaks, and his hands are second to none in this draft. And I'd put his hands up against any receiver in this draft as well. His hands are top-notch. Catch radius. Talked about the 83-inch wingspan on the podcast. Talk about it again here because, again, you're talking about a 6'5" frame with 83-inch arms, 83-inch wingspan arms attached to them, but his arms are 33 inches. You know, so 6'5" frame with 33-inch arms, which equal out to an 83-inch wingspan attached. Now try and stop him after he uses his, 37 or 8-inch vertical leap to go up and get the ball. Good luck. You're going to need it. The guy's ridiculous. So he's got catch radius. His route running, as I talked about already, second to none. I'm watching this dude, underneath, breaking off Patrick Surtain. I'm watching him at the second level, breaking dudes off. And then I'm watching him at the third level get vertical and just absolutely shred safeties who are waiting on him. He makes them think he's going to the post only to break them off and run a corner route. They're nowhere to be found. He's getting up the seam. He's getting outside the numbers. There's no answer for this dude. You know, I'm watching him in a game. I want to say it was Ole Miss first game of the season. And it's right before halftime. They don't want to give up a touchdown. And they double team him. He's kicking their ass in the first half. So they double team him. They're in and outing him. And he breaks them off inside so much so that both of them give him the ability to still catch a back shoulder fade. And he catches it. Falling down, end zone touchdown. I mean, the dude is just nasty. I watched them try to in and out him. They're bracket coveraging him. One's got outside responsibility. The other, he just runs right by him. He splits them. Just pure speed and route running ability. Runs right by him, catches it over the top, and hauls ass. Take a stiff arm on the way out. Touchdown. It's nasty, man. Body control, leaping ability. Those, again, second to none. I talked about the body control briefly just now in that touchdown grab he had against Ole Miss, where he was able to contort his body, stop, turn, pivot, go down and dig it out on a back shoulder fade for the touchdown. He could just do so many different things. Pirouette into the air, come down with the football, still get his feet down inbounds. The leaping ability, again, you can throw it up to this guy. 50-50 balls aren't 50-50 balls. They're 70-30 go-getter balls for him, where if I'm a quarterback, I'm going to just throw it up because he's my guy. And if I throw it up to him in a one-on-one situation, it ain't a 50-50 ball. It's a 70-30 ball. My guy's going to come down with it. So with him, you don't have to throw the back shoulder fade. You can just throw a legitimate, old-school, go-up-and-get-it, jump ball fade, and he'll go get it. He's a separator. I've talked about it, and it doesn't matter underneath, all three levels, underneath, intermediate, deep, he separates. And I'm watching him run routes, and I'm just like, I'm marveling at him running routes. Him and his teammate, Kadarius Toney, running some sick, nasty routes. And I'm like, that should be illegal. That's nasty. That's trifling, it's disgusting, and I feel for some of these defenders. Because a guy that big in that frame shouldn't be able to move the way that Kyle Pitts moves. And you're asking defenders who are just helpless, just standing there, have no idea, because he's got a three-way go. 4 if you count coming back to the ball. But he can go in, out, or up. What am I supposed to do when he breaks me off inside and stems back outside? What am I supposed to do? I'm already at a disadvantage. I can't keep up with him. So the first move he gives me inside, I got to jump that. Well, now you got, because he pivots, turns, and gives you a whip route and goes outside. Well, what happens when he stems hard outside? I think he's running a fade. I don't want to get run by. And then he goes inside. And he runs a slant. What am I supposed to do? Vertical threat, playmaker, all of those things. I've already explained. He can get vertical. He's a playmaker. The guy, 12 touchdowns this year, man. I mean, 12 touchdowns, 770 yards on 43 grabs. The guy averaged 18 yards per pop. That's a playmaker, folks. A lot of these tight ends are averaging 11, 12 yards a catch because it ain't no run after the catch. There's no separation. This dude is catching the football with a yard or two of separation, and he's getting vertical on folks and run after the catch. So he's a playmaker. 18 yards a pop. That's receiver-type numbers. That ain't tight end numbers normally. Run after the catch, I told you, it's nasty. All right? 4.4, 4.40 tells you all you need to know. You ain't catching this dude from behind, man. You know, a lot of these tight ends, they get vertical. It's a busting coverage. And here comes some corner or safety screaming down, catching their ass from behind at the 7-yard line. Now you got to find a way in the end zone. You ain't catching – you blow a coverage if you want to. You ain't catching Kyle Pitts from behind. Good luck. You're going to need it. And he's not just your typical catch it, all right, big, lumbering dude. He can move. Catching traffic. Best example of that, the Georgia game. Dude takes just the most hellacious shot you've ever seen in your life. It's the kind of hit that you're trying to get out of the sport. College, NFL, it doesn't matter. Dude comes in, spears him with his helmet. His helmet goes flying off. Kyle Pitts has to have surgery on his nose and a concussion. You could tell he was out upon contact. I think he still caught the damn ball. He might have dropped it, even though you go unconscious. Not a lot of times you drop the football. He was out on his feet. But that goes to the toughness, fearlessness aspect that I was going to talk about later. Might as well talk about it now. He knew he was going to take a shot on that catch. He knew he was going to get hit. He didn't think he was going to get hit like that. You never think you're going to get headhunted like that. But he knew he was going to take a shot regardless. Still went after the football. Don't hang your guys out to dry like that, though. If you're a quarterback out there, don't hang your guy out to dry like that. Don't do that. But, my goodness, he can catch it in traffic, man. He can catch it in traffic. And that's where that fearlessness and toughness comes into play. He ain't afraid. He ain't scaried, as a wise man once said. This guy is a blocker in the run and pass game. Sometimes the pad level could get a little high, but man, does he fight his ass off in the run game and as a pass protector. Man, I wasn't honestly, this film study for me on Kyle Pitts wasn't really about the athlete and the athleticism and the pass catch. None of that shit I needed to see. I seen enough of that just watching games. I already knew what this guy was about. this really was, hey, man, how good are you in the run game and as a pass protector? How's your pass pro? If I got to have you stay in and block, can I trust you one-on-one with an edge rusher? One-on-one with a blitzer? Can I trust you? And what you doing in the run game? Check and check. Check and check. Because for me, if you can't block, run, pass, either, it's hard for me to spend a top 10 pick on you. Now, with this kind of athleticism, I can spend the top 15. I can spend 15 or 20 on you. Hard for me to, like, Noah Fant, for instance. Not the best blocker in the world. I spend 20 on you. That's what Denver did. I spend 20 on you. I can get with that. But you can block too? With all of this shit that we talking about, you can block too? Now we talking top 5. Now we talking top 10. Formational flex and red zone target. Again, I don't have to explain formational flex to you. This guy's all over the field. You can flex him out wide. You can put him in the slot. You can line up in tight, in line as a traditional Y. He did that quite a bit. He can be a wing guy for you. Just everywhere. But he's a red zone target, man. 12 touchdowns, as I mentioned, this year. 5 last year. 18 for his career at Florida. Some of these obviously aren't in the red zone. He's catching it and running it. But how many of those touchdowns did we see? A slant. He just beats the guy across his face. Ball's out in front and he snatches it. How many times you see him in the end zone, body up a dude, back shoulder fade, they can't do anything about it? How many of those did you see, though? Plenty of those. And that's the separator for me is, look, I want a guy that can move the sticks. I want a guy that can do damage 20 to 20. But where the money is made is, can I get it to you on 3rd and 6 when I got to have it? 3rd and goal from the 6? When I just say, all right. Because we know once you get inside the 10-yard line, when we get inside the 5 and inside the 7, when we get in the red zone, it's less about plays and more about players. As they like to say, it's less about X's and O's and it's more about, the Jimmys and Joes. All right? That's when it becomes, all right, man, where your ballers at? Where your ballers at? Where they at? Now I need a dude that he can win. That's Kyle Pitts. Productivity. Over the last 2 years, no tight end in college football probably has been more productive in that 2-year span than Kyle Pitts. You're talking about 97 catches for 1,419 yards and 17 touchdowns over the last 2 years. Again, I don't know if you'll find a tight end more productive than that over the last 2 years in just 21 games. So he was outstanding these last 2 years. He was outstanding in 2020 when he didn't have to be. And I don't know how this guy I don't know how this guy makes it out of the top 10, honestly. And I would be shocked if the Falcons don't go quarterback at 4. I think he's the pick if they don't trade out of the pick. Weaknesses. I'm nitpicking here, man. It's not a lot for you to really be able to say he can't do. So I had to nitpick. His pad level can be a little high as a blocker. Okay? Sometimes he's 6'5", close to 6'6". So you get to blocking and you go from a low center of gravity and low base to all the way up, standing straight up. That's not what you're looking for, and you can get that from him sometimes. And then sometimes he can be a little delayed and excessive with his hezzy steps off the line of scrimmage. So when you watch him off of the line of scrimmage, man, is he beating the turf up. Pitter-pat, 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 pitter-pat. He's trying to set the dude up. Hezzy. And he's pitter-patting, pitter-patting. And I'm like, hey, go, man, go. You take it too long. Quarterbacks doesn't have that much time. Get into your shit. And it's effective, but I don't need you doing, you're 6'5", 245. I don't need you doing all of that. If you want to give him one little hezzy off the line of scrimmage and then go, like when you watch Devontae Adams, it's a hezzy and go off the line of scrimmage. He ain't doing all of this shaking, pitty-pat. Don't nobody got time for that shit. It's a hezzy and go. Slap down the hands and go much faster than slow. So I need him to get better at that. I need him to get better off the line of scrimmage and not be dancing and doing the waltz at the line of scrimmage. I need him to get into his shit and go much faster than slow. He'll get better at that, though. But he's a top 10 pick, man. He really is a top 5 pick, to be honest with you. He's a top 5 talent. I don't know if anybody that has their big board, their overall 100 prospects in this draft, don't have him in the top 5 of that list. This guy's phenomenal. My comp for him is Darren Waller. I look at Darren Waller and I say he's kind of created the lane for Kyle Pitts. The big 6'5", 6'6", long, lanky, fast tight end. Remember, Darren Waller ran a 4.46 coming into the league as a receiver. And the Baltimore Ravens decided to turn him into a tight end, and it just took a while. Had some issues off the field. And so he ends up going to Oakland, now Vegas, and the rest is history. He's one of the most dominant tight ends in the league now from a pass-catching standpoint. That's Kyle Pitts, man, all day long. I'm looking at Darren Waller, and I'm saying Kyle Pitts will come in and have that kind of immediate impact. Did Darren Waller have 1,000 yards receiving this year? If not, he was damn close. Let's take a look, see what Darren Waller did in 2020. As Pitts has a chance to come in and have that kind of an impact immediately. Shit, the last 2 years, Darren Waller's gone over 1,100 yards receiving. Not 1,000, 1,100 yards receiving in the last 2 seasons apiece. Had over 100 receptions last year and damn near 1,200 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. That's going to be Kyle Pitts in 2 years. I don't know if he comes in year 1 and puts up those types of numbers. Give him 2 years. And put him in the right offense with the right quarter. You put him in Atlanta, he might do it in year 1. With Julio and Calvin Ridley on the outsides and working aside. And this guy having the free reins to tear it up over the middle with no safety help because they got to worry about Julio and Calvin Ridley. Yeah, he might go for a G in the first year. But, give him 2 years, he'd be tearing shit up. So, this is a can't-miss prospect. If he's healthy, he ain't missing, man. He is not missing, period. And so Kyle Pitts, unequivocally, my unquestioned number 1 tight end of the 2021 NFL draft. So, I think I got another super chat, and I do. Got this one from my man, John Perez, my guy, JP. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, if we can't get our hands on a quarterback, I want Pitts. He's a gold jacket worthy player, just like Chase Young was coming out. You get no gripes, qualms out of me. He fits the mold, the bill, all of that good jazz. He looks the part. He looks the part of a guy that in 17 years from now, we'll be saying, hey, where's his gold jacket at? Go ahead and get him. Go ahead and tailor him up, get him fitted for one, because 4 years after he hangs it up, he's going straight to Canton. He looks the part of it right now. Long time between then and now, or now and then, but yeah, I get the same vibes we got from Chase Young a season ago. I get those same vibes from Kyle Pitts, and it's rare we say that about a tight end. Rare. So I'm with you. Thank you for that super chat, JP. Let me take a few comments here before we get out of here. I'm not going to be here much longer, though. Reese says, Kyle Pitts, Lou. Dude is a freak. People are going to get sweaty pits trying to stop him. Yes. Yes, they will. A classic re-pun on deck. He also says, Ree says, do you like the Gio Bernard signing for my Bucks? He's like a younger version of what Shady gave us last year. Also, can you say Giovanni Bernard the way you do? It's great. That's my guy, Giovanni Bernard. And he's the perfect fit in Tampa Bay. He's the perfect running back for Tom Brady. We've talked about the Brady backs over the years, the Whites, and the original Brady back, Giovanni Bernard, kind of has a similar stature to in Kevin Falk. But over the years, the Danny Woodheads, the Whites, all the guys he's thrown the football to, the Shane Vereen's of the world, Giovanni Bernard fits in that mold. And I couldn't have gone, other than Kansas City, I couldn't have, or New Orleans, but there's no Drew Brees there anymore. I couldn't have come up with a better place for Giovanni Bernard than Tampa. So that's a great fit for him. Love that he landed in Tampa Bay. Reese says, now that we have Gio, I want to get out of 32, Lou. Peel back, get more picks. No one that we take at 32 is going to get a ton of snaps. We need to get out of the pick. And you probably will be able to, especially if there's a quarterback there like a Davis Mills that someone's clamoring over, or a pick that someone wants that extra year of control over, that fifth-year option. You'll be able to get out of 32 if the spillage is real in the first round, that like we think it is going to be. You'll probably have an opportunity to get out of 32. Reese says, I'm going to be pissed if Atlanta drafts Kyle Pitts. It's a realistic possibility, dude. Very realistic, Ree. JP says, Pitts is going to be a beast in this league for the next decade plus. I agree. Big time. Reese says, you can play Pitts all over the field. You can line him up in the traditional sense, out wide, in the slot, in the backfield. Dude is going to be a dangerous weapon in the league. I concur wholeheartedly. Reese says, I'm going to put you on the spot, Lou. Put your GM hat on. If everything goes the way you think it will and you've got to make the pick, who would you pick for your Washington football team? It's hard to say because I don't actually know how it's going to go. Other than 3 quarterbacks are going to go in the first 3 picks. After that, all hell could break loose. More likely than not, though, I think when we get to 19, I think there's going to be one corner that I'll probably be willing to take on the board, but that one corner might be Caleb Farley, and I might not be willing to get past his injury situation and medical concerns, even though he got a clean bill of health from Indy on, I think it was last Thursday or Friday, but I still having a tough time just reconciling that in my brain with the injuries and situations he's had with his back. But he'll be on the board more likely than not. There'll be a steady diet of linebackers that will intrigue me, that'll be available, that might be hard to pass up. And then I think there could be a wide receiver that I'm intrigued by that have to be one of the Bama boys. I don't see either one of them being available, however. So I think you would then look at offensive line as well. For me, I think if Washington has a linebacker that they love, you just pull the trigger there in the first round. I think it's a deep linebacker draft class, as I mentioned. So the need to have to grab a linebacker isn't as great because of the depth of the position. Whereas when you get to the offensive tackle, it's a deep draft offensive line-wise. But you still, if you can get an elite tackle, you want to do that. So if they value the tackle position and they covet one as greatly as people are making them seem like they are, I still contend that I don't think tackle is on the list of needs as high as people have put it. I'm hearing from people that are close to the team that the tackle position is, in fact, high on their list of wants. So if that's the case, I could see them going tackle. Our GM, Martin Mayhew, was way too excited at the Virginia Tech Pro Day when he went and saw Christian Darrisaw. I think that ultimately tackle is going to be what Washington does at 19, and I'm not mad at that. You got to invest on the offensive line. So if that's what they decided to do, I wouldn't have any issues with that. Got another super chat. This one is from Landry Balbin. Thank you for the super chat, Landry Balbin. Greatly appreciate you. Landry writes, hey, Louie, how will you feel if we sign Jordan Reed on a 1-year deal? We desperate at tight end. I wouldn't be upset at that. I wouldn't be satisfied with him being on the roster, though. I wouldn't get Jordan Reed back on a 1-year deal and say, all right, we good at tight end. We don't need to do anything. Like that would be fool's gold. I mean, even last year when he was playing well, he still got injured. He still missed games. It wasn't because of what we went through in Washington with concussions and things of that nature, but still had ankle injury and he still missed games in San Francisco. So I wouldn't be opposed to Jordan Reed signing in Washington. But even if you did that, I'd still want to draft a guy. I still would view the cupboard as being relatively bare at tight end because you can't rely on Jordan Reed for 16 weeks. You know how refreshing it was last year to know Logan Thomas was going to play in every single game? Like, he's extremely durable. Didn't have to worry about him not playing next week. You know how comforting that is? Like, people take availability for granted. Like, Washington fans, one of the things about Kirk Cousins, and I know you guys hate when I do this, I don't care. Obviously, I don't care, is that he never got hurt. You guys take that stuff for granted. Since he's left, have we had a quarterback play all 16 games? 1 year since Kirk Cousins has left. I can answer that for you. No, we haven't. Because in this league, quarterbacks get injured all the time. And so if you can find a player at a position that doesn't get hurt, there is a level of comfort and a redeeming quality about a guy that can just stay healthy. And it's hard. This is a contact sport, or as some call it, a collision sport. It's hard to stay healthy. I understand that. Jordan Reed just never has been able to do that. So I wouldn't have a problem with them signing him to a 1-year deal, but I would also still want them to be aggressive at the tight end position in this draft, even if that were the case. So thank you for that super chat, Landry Bulbin. Got another comment here. Take a few more before we get out of here. I don't want to take too many more. It's already midnight, so let me get out of here. Let you guys get back to your proceedings on the evening. Reed says, quarterbacks always get overdrafted. If you want one, you have to overdraft them in most cases. Quarterbacks don't fall in your lap. Facts. Everybody knows that. It's no secret. You want a quarterback, you're going to have to go up and get them. They don't fall into your lap. The days of Aaron Rodgers dropping like a rock and being selected at 24, those days are over. Okay? That's never happening again. Ever. Okay? You want a quarterback, you have to go get him. Period. End of discussion. Reese says, Brev is a dog, Lou. He was productive regardless of who was tossing the rock. Dude has so much heart, too. Wants to be great. Hashtag go Canes. And listening to him talk, I felt that same type of energy. I got that vibe from him. Like, this is a guy that wants to be great. And I see that from him on tape, and I also heard it from him in his voice. Reese says, Jordan is the number 2 tight end in this class. Brev has a lion's heart, and he loves football. He has as much desire as any tight end in this class. I love it, too. You can have as much heart and desire as you want, but you got to stay healthy as well. That's a big, big thing. Something he hasn't always been able to do. But he's got a lot of talent. That is for sure. Before I read these last couple of comments, I do want to ask you guys to do me a huge solid and subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on your notification bell. If you haven't already done that, please do so you don't miss a thing. And hit the like button. We're at 87 likes. Oh, there are right around 170 of you out there. So plenty of time to get this done. Let's get this to 100 likes, guys. If you're out there, you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Let's get this thing up to 100 likes before we call it quits for the night. And also, if you want to support the Louie T Network, buying merch is one of the best ways to do that. As you see, I have a hat on, plenty of merch available. Look down in the description of this and every single video that I do for more details. You can go to the website, LouieTeeNetwork.net. You can go to printchamps.com. Both places you can find Louie T Network merch, hats, shirts, beanies, hoodies, masks, you name it, it's there. Check out all of the merch on display and support the Louie T Network in the process by making a purchase. So thank you for that in advance. Let me read a couple more comments. Maurice Davis says, hit the like button, everybody. Louie T gives us great content every show. Acknowledge him, hit the like button. I second that notion. Maurice Davis, thank you so much for that comment. And I'll take a couple more. My man JP says, if this draft wasn't dominated by quarterbacks and receivers, Pitts would be off the board at 2 or 3. Facts. He's that good. Atlanta could take him, but I've heard he could end up in Dallas too. I've heard that Dallas is intrigued. I don't think, and I touched on that on the last podcast. I don't believe that Dallas is serious about getting Kyle Pitts. I mean, if he fell to them, they would take him. I don't think they're serious about trading up to get him, however. And they would have to trade up. He's not falling to 10 to Dallas. Let's see. JP also says, I'd love to get JOK at 19 if all the big names are gone. The draft is stacked at offensive line, so we can grab one in the second or third. No O-line in the first round. I kind of feel the same way. There's enough depth, but, you know, you can fall into the trap of saying, oh, I can get one of those later. And then by the time you're ready to get one, the shit that's left is like undesirable. Like, man, we didn't think they would be gone this fast. Like, this is all that's left? Kind of like you go to the grocery store and you look over there and you look at the produce section and you see a bunch of really good, I don't know, pick your favorite vegetable or fruit, you know? You see a bunch of good strawberries over there, little crates of them. And you're like, oh, yeah. For me, it's cherries. When it's cherry season, oh, they got plenty of cherries. I'll go get a bag in a second. And then you come back, and there's a bunch of just random bags with a bunch of bright red. The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice when it comes to cherries. You want the dark bags. You don't want them to be bad, but you want them to be dark. You got a bunch of bright red cherries over here. Like, what am I going to do with this? Can't eat this shit. I can't get jiggy with this shit. So you don't want to wait too long, and then all the good ones are gone, and then you look up and you say, man, this is what I'm left with? But at the same time, I like you, kind of feel the same way about offensive line, specifically the tackle position. There's so much depth at that position that you'd like to believe that you can get one in the second. I don't know about the third, kind of pushing it then, but you might be able to get something in a second, but I wouldn't be too sure about that. But I agree with you. JOK at 19 would make a ton of sense. If you don't have anything that you love there, I would like to think they would love his playmaking ability and the speed that he would be able to add to the team defensively. So with that said, that's it for me, your man Louie T. I'm going to go ahead, glide to the side, allow you guys to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I interrupted your evening with this live stream. I thank you guys for chopping it up with me and joining me this late. It's late, but it's still great. And I really do appreciate you guys chopping it up with me. I will individually chop these up, upload them, and they will be available for individual consumption at some point. But this is going to be a different week, an abbreviated week, because I'm off to Mexico in a few days. So everything is going to be condensed, and I'll be able to get some content to you guys while I'm out of the office. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a podcast tomorrow. So be on the lookout. It will be the lone podcast of the week. So be on the lookout for that. We will have a Washington show on Wednesday night. And hopefully I'll have some draft content for you despite not being actually physically here. So we'll see what happens and how much work I'm able to get done throughout the course of the week. But you have been notified, and you'll hear about this more throughout the course of this week as well. But in any event, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man Louie T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys, take it easy, take care, God bless, and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.